for your patience. Linda had a lot of stuff to try to pull together this morning, so we'll get started at 9:15, and it is Monday, May 1st. So the first thing we wanted to kind of go through is we wanted to give y'all an update. We did come to an agreement with the police association. Of course, it's tentative agreement because they've got to have their membership approved. Council has to, well, they have to ratify, and then the council has to approve. So there will be a May 2nd meeting of the council talking about tomorrow. Actually, we'll be presenting the presentation of what we come to tentative agreement on with them. One of the items is the authority of the arbitrator. So it's the items that we had talked about with you, and so we're going to give you all the language that we made to agreement with them on, so that y'all can take a look at that and see what y'all's thoughts are on it. As far as investigations and disciplinary suspensions, this is 180 days. The extra 180 days that we said we were going to ask y'all to consider as well. So I'll give you those articles, and then the wages and compensation. We have some of the things that we were looking at that we wanted to give y'all to look at, and then I know we'll need to caucus some today because there's some scenarios that we'll want to get to y'all to consider, but we need to make sure we're all on the same page first.
Sure.
Yes. Yes, and that way you can. Do you want me to give them these, and then we can? Then you want to step them through?
You can just get one in front.
Yes, sure. And are we going to give them this too? Sure. So then the other thing is that Linda's been working on the shift in admin fire assignments, trying to do a policy, for that. And I know that was something we talked about. So we have this also to work through with you.
Okay.
So I'm going to get copies for us, and then I come and pass them on.
Yes.
One. Yes. So those are the things we got. Thank you.
So if we could go through the wages and compensation one first, and let me just step you through. We don't have a base wage proposal yet, but I did want to share with you what we've made progress on, and we're looking at the proposals for longevity and base pay kind of at the same time in terms of overall cost. But we did look at some of the ad pay. So looking at the admin assignment pay, we're suggesting $375 from up to $50 from $325, and that's based on
Yes, sir.
that's based on evaluation at UC step 1. And then the fire marshals are what you guys had asked for is equal certification pay. After surveying the market and having some discussions with some other peers and considering your interest, what we're proposing is that we do fire marshals, peace officer certification pay. So it would be a 2-prong. You have to have your TCOL license, intermediate or high. Let me see here, where did we land? So I haven't looked at this since last week. Intermediate or higher, and be assigned to the fire marshal's office for $50 a month cert pay. So, and then bilingual pay we had discussed for meeting what we've done for police there. And I need to get an idea from y'all how many people you think would qualify for that to help us in cost of the agreement.
Okay.
I got a list of the search from Lydia, so I feel like I've got that. Any questions on that part?
No, ma'am, I do not believe so. Obviously, we need to.
Sure, I just wanted to make sure
Yes,
you understood
yes,
what we were handing
Okay,
you.
yes, ma'am.
Our plan will be that after she goes through the things, then we can caucus.
Okay.
And that way we can go through the things also, and then, they're gonna get with us on the case stuff too.
Okay.
We can come back hopefully and talk about that.
Perfect.
Okay, then on the shift to admin and back and forth and pay out of that. So the first page that you have, and I will say I haven't had a chance to discuss this with Carl because he's been off.
Yes, ma'am.
But the first page is kind of working through how that movement happens so that we all have a shared understanding. And that the desire is to make people who have been on admin assignment full at payout as if they were on shift. And I think before we get into that, there's somewhat of a concern about, what if somebody's been in an admin position for the bulk of their career. So I'm going to say that and put that in a parking lot over here.
Okay.
So the second page goes through and looks at kind of starts at the bottom and works up. If somebody's hourly on administration, you start with what are the hours that they currently have. And in this example, it's somebody who's got the max of both, right?
Okay.
So then it rolls up and looks at, okay, in this example, it's a BC step 15. What would be their admin payout? The rates are different, right?
Yes.
So admin rate, 720, 720, total hours, that's the total payout. And go up one line higher, it goes to shift payout, what that rate is, what those hours are, what that total is, and then finds the difference.
Correct.
So wanting to understand, Carl's example is a little bit different in terms of moving somebody back to shift for the payout, but if you've got hours worked at admin, you can't move somebody back and facilitate that. So if the interest.
I'm sorry, he wasn't advocating to move them back, but he was advocating to find somebody on shift and at the same grade as them, use that as that comparative. This gets it done.
I mean, if they're at that same step, I don't know why
Right.
that's necessary.
I agree. I think it's just the same place.
So then that calculates the difference between the two. So is that for interest?
Yes, ma'am. So let me, if I'm hearing it correctly, what you're thinking is, let's just say somebody moves to admin and they're there for 6 years, the remainder, the last 6 years of their career. So the hours that they have on shift will basically be frozen. And then the hours that they accumulate in admin, and you will get paid for 2 separate banks, or how are you doing it?
So when you're in shift and you transfer over, your hours should be converted over.
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
So this is rocket science, so be prepared. You take your hours, divide them by the 12, that's your leave hours on that, multiply them by 8, that's the leave hours in admin, and that gives you your new bank.
Okay.
When you go back the other way, you do the reverse of that.
Okay.
So, and that's taken into account in this example.
Perfect. Okay, so the formula you're coming up with is you're going to convert everyone's hours to the admin, and if they came back, say they worked 5 or 6 years and then wanted to come back, you would convert all their hours back. Is that what you would do? Okay.
So as a part of this, we're going back and auditing to ensure that everybody's hours were converted over.
Okay.
So that's a part of the discussion with finance about this. So wanted to make sure that we have met your interest in this before we start doing a policy.
This is definitely the interest that we have. This is the concern and the problem that we had found. Yes, ma'am. That's the difference in the two. But yes, ma'am, that's correct. However, we need to get this number right here fixed. That's what we're looking for. Yes, ma'am.
And our thought was not to do it as part of Meet with Confer, but rather to do that as a separate policy, only because it's not something we're bargaining for.
Right.
That later on, we're gonna try to take off the table, or that y'all, it's just the right thing to do, and we need to clarify that. Okay. So that's why we thought it would be just, but it still needs to be a policy. It needs to be something that's written and.
So I'm okay with that as long as we can get it get it taken care of and get something
We
done.
can still do it through the
Yes.
timeline that we're looking at.
This is something that we've been discussing for years and nothing, it's kind of seems to keeps getting kicked down the road. So we're just trying to make sure that it gets taken care of.
Sure, no, we can have that be one of the items we sign as a policy or something like that. I mean, I'm happy to sign that and we
I'm
can
okay
do
with
that as long as we come to agreement on the policy.
Perfect.
Any questions on the other two articles we exchanged?
Haven't had a chance to look at them.
Well, if y'all wanna just look at them. And
Sure. Going back to the pay, I just want to make sure the assigned pay for the shift of the 40-hour week, guys. Where did you come up with the $50? I don't know, and there's no problem. I just so I can answer. I know the guys are going to ask me, where did you come up with that number? The 375 or
My understanding, after I didn't go back and look at my notes from 2009 or whenever we started that, but my understanding is it was based on the difference at the first step of PC.
Okay,
And so that's what we based it on and rounded it up.
gotcha. Okay, makes sense. I just wanted to make sure I was tracking because I know that they're going to ask me that
Sure.
question. Where did that number come from? So.
The first step is.
We build in some sort of an automatic escalator all the time for that number, so we're not having to constantly research it every few years. Because that's changed as a product of the cost of wages. I mean, I don't know.
Just making a reevaluate each agreement, puts that amount to that figure term per 4.
Well, it doesn't make sense to put it as a part. This,
To do what?
if we're setting an amount, that's only.
He's talking about
I
something different.
went back to the admin assignment.
Oh, okay, okay, sorry. I was like, okay, it's just for a certain amount of time, okay. All right. So, and then on the authority of an arbitrator, just because I know we've seen it and y'all, this will be probably the first time we've actually seen it in writing in front of you. So basically what we said was that there was evidence that the chief's decision was the result of unlawful discrimination based on sudden and unaccountable changes of mood or behavior, capricious, or based on random choice or personal whim rather than any reason or system arbitrary. The arbitrator may not substitute his or her judgment for the chief's on the disciplinary penalty when the conduct has been found to constitute gross or sustained insubordination that has been corrected by documented progressive discipline, coaching, counseling, untruthfulness, or allegations of criminal misconduct. So basically it's those three instances: insubordination, untruthfulness, or misconduct, for which the arbitrator cannot substitute his or her judgment for that of the chief unless you prove that his decision was motivated by unlawful discrimination, it's capricious or arbitrary. So those are the three instances in which where those came from, because your membership is probably going to ask you. Those three instances came from the F5, and I don't know if y'all have something like that in fire, but it's like whether it's honorable or dishonorable discharge.
Mm-hmm.
So those are the things that would warrant something as being a dishonorable discharge.
Okay.
And so those were the three things that are covered under that, and so that was where that came from.
Okay.
Oh, on the performance. Yeah, we'll need to look at how we, because like for insubordination, we did take from the PD policy down below, so we'll need y'all's input to see on how insubordination is defined.
They wanted some clarifying language, so to make it clear that you're not talking about, minor instances of insubordination and, like.
Such as like not tying your shoe.
Exactly.
But yeah, I mean, and my point was, you're not gonna be in a situation where you're facing termination or days off for minor instances of insubordination, trying to think about it, but nonetheless, it made sense to just take language from the contract and put it in there to clarify it.
Okay.
That's why that's in there.
So y'all can take a look at that and give us your feedback on it. And then for Article 21, the investigation of disciplinary suspension. So we added about alleged sexual harassment violation. That's in B. And so we talked about that for the 300 days within the 300 days of the occurrence of the alleged act. And then for criminal violations, the chief already complained within 180 days, that's still that, but then, they also have 180 days, the chief would also have 180 days after the complaint of the alleged violation, provided however the 180th day period shall be extended for a period not to exceed 30 days after final disposition of any pending criminal proceedings regarding the alleged act. And then for A, what we did was we added the 180 days for the chief to file a written complaint of the occurrence of the alleged act, and then temporarily or indefinitely suspend the officer no later than the 180th day after the date of the complaint of the alleged violation is filed by the chief. So it gives 180 days to complain, but then another 180 days to investigate, and then to hand down discipline. So those are the two changes that we made with police.
Okay. Yeah, like I said, we'll need to, because it's the first time we're seeing these, we'll
Yeah,
definitely
sure.
have to read them over. And
Yes,
if we have questions, we can definitely come back, but
yes,
this is what I wanted to see for sure. I wanted to make sure that I saw whatever you guys had
yes.
in writing to present, so we can kind of go over it.
So those are them, and that way y'all can talk about those. And then shift, and then like I said, we're gonna talk about pay. Anything else, Linda, that we need before we proceed?
No, I think we actually have a couple more, but I don't. Look here.
What about increasing the age?
That's in not hiring, so there's a lot of other stuff in there that wasn't.
Linda, I don't know, have you and Les had a chance to speak about like the fire marshal language and the things that we discussed?
No, he was working on budget. Week before last, and then last week I had police first part of the week, he was out end of the week, so we haven't, I know that's a key area of interest for you.
Yeah.
And that fire marshal piece and the additional assistant chief kind of work hand in hand, so those two we still need to work on.
Okay, perfect, no problem. If there's, like I said, if there's anything we can do to help with that, I'm more than willing as well, so. I spoke with Henderson a little bit about it, the other day, and it doesn't seem like we're far off, or I think we're all asking for the same things, just trying to come up with how the language needs to look and read. So I don't think it's gonna be too big of a deal.
So this is just a amount of time for minor suspensions, they have 2 shifts and those.
Okay. So the other thing that we did with police is we also increased for minor suspensions. And so this would be going from 24 hours to 48 hours or less for shift personnel, or 32 hours or less for staff personnel. So that was for minor suspension. So we can give them a copy of this one.
Yeah, they've got that,
They've got that one already.
Chris just sent that.
Okay. So really what we have left are once we look at these, that we need to get them drafts on, is the hiring for increasing the maximum age without the qualifications, and then without level of entry, that opens part of the hiring one as well. And then we hire the person.
So we had TA'd that separately, but then made the decision to go back and incorporate that with the hiring. So we actually got a TA on it, but we're going to incorporate it here. So we did exchange. Carl did some work on the new hire, but we haven't had a chance to really, see how that would navigate. So it's a longer list of things going down to no certification and what gets priority over what.
Okay.
So I think that's pretty much what we had been discussing, and then the alternate application process. Lateral entry.
I mean, on that, I know that there are a few of our departments that are on our peer cities. If there's information you'd like, because I know for sure Brian just did it, and I think College Station does it as well. There's language you'd like for us to try to get that you could look at, we can do that as well.
Sure, I mean, anything that you.
Because I know for sure Brian just did their first process of hiring with no certifications, and I think they had a good turnout. So I can reach out to them and see if I can
Okay.
find what their language looks like in their contract.
What about pollution? What was that?
Chris, do you have an update on
Hey, good morning.
them on the assessment centers?
The problem is, people like those big, big. It's taking some time off the way.
I was literally just about to mention your name. And then here you came. No, I was just gonna say that in the future, we were gonna invite, Les.
Oh, I didn't see the invite until I was already late. Good morning. Hello, hello.
Good morning.
Say hi, good morning, good morning, good morning.
You do it this morning?
No, that was where I was doing. Oh, I had to reverse course and put on real clothes. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mentioned it to you because I they, you know, population of the change.
No, I think I have.
That's fine. Say that was. Off the drain and every other. So I said, so I was on those. The January, we said, really. Let's show that. I have the calendar of this time. It's a time. We're seeing these. Stuff. Everybody does it's big and just doesn't.
And they already have this one, right? Which one, we already got TA on the script.
So you make things appropriation, what you just figure out. What you can do. I pay for it. And then whether-
Do y'all have any questions on anything?
I don't
And then
think
we
so.
can
I'd like to-
go ahead and process.
Sure. Yes, ma'am. I'd like to look at, we need to read over all of this, because it's the first time we've seen some of it, so
For sure.
definitely.
Yeah, y'all take a look at it, and then just, if you just want to text and let us know when y'all are ready, and we'll let y'all know also. There's some things we want to review with Les and stuff too, so this will be a good time, and then, I want to see the case scenarios that they can get this on. And then that way, we're ready to do that, we can talk to y'all about that as well.
Sounds great. Thanks, ma'am.
Okay. So they'll stay in here,
Surgery.
We can move, or we can, whatever you guys.
you want them to stay in here, and then us go and see them.
That's what we've been doing.
Yeah.
Does it matter about
Yeah.
Oh, there it is.
Oh.
Yeah.
It's not.
Okay,
Okay,
mic
okay.
open. If y'all are ready to start, we'll get you rolling.
Okay, perfect.
Okay, we're good.
Thank you. I want to talk about any of the things.
Sure, I guess we can start if you guys want to with the I'm paying with the TCO. The section 6 where it says fire marshal's office, peace officer certification pay. And I'll let Dalmore explain, because he can explain it a lot better than I can with him holding the actual certification. I don't know where our ideas on it.
So, right now, the way that's worded, myself and I guess any new members that have the TCOL certification wouldn't benefit from this added responsibility of having that certification in the fire marshal's office. And then utilizing that for your arson investigator. It takes 2 years to get your intermediate, and then a series of classes that you have to have that's mandated. So like I said, myself, I'm one class away from getting my intermediate. I have the 2 years of service. Without, you can get your intermediate, without the 2 years of service if you had an associate's degree or bachelor's or higher.
So what would you?
Or military service. So anyways, if for cops, I'm sorry, for our members of the PD, they obviously don't get paid for the basic, just like how we don't get paid for our basic fire.
Right.
Because obviously you wouldn't have that, job to begin with, so, we're just proposing, like, College Station, for example, does $600 annually for your arson investigator, which the only way you can have an arson investigator is if you're a peace officer. And there's was 600 annually, that would be $50 a month. What that would come out to.
So our proposal is, rather than have it say to pay for the TCOL cert, have it to where we are paid for the arson investigator cert, and the only way you can get the arson investigator is if you have the TCOL cert.
Is there some additional, I'm guessing there's additional training you have to go through that?
Yes, sir. It would be, it's an additional class to get your arson investigator on top of the TCOL. But that would, and then also, like, there is one member, I think Carl, I don't know if he has his arson, but I know he has his TCOL. But we have one of our members that would be used, and Henderson would use him in the event that something happened and they needed to use him. He's on duty and on shift. He's not assigned to the marshal's office, so we want him to be eligible for it as well. So not just assigned to the fire marshal's office.
I think that will.
And that's 6 total members in our department, including Chief Coleman.
Okay.
Does that make sense what we're talking about, Chief? I mean,
Yeah, I was just gonna provide some clarification for them. There's, under the Texas Commission on Fire Protection, there's 2 different certifications. There's fire investigator, which I could go get. There's arson investigator. The arson adds a criminal element. And in order to have that, you have to have the TCOL to go with your fire investigator certification. And then you package those up to become an arson investigator. So people like Thomas Corshane and Larry Fossauer, who are in the prevention division, but not LE, would not receive that. But I don't remember who it is that's outside. Josh Anchors came to us with that certification. And they just swore him in recently. I think Jane swore him in to assist with this. So that's what they're asking is to include him so that they could include him in that capacity. And he's scheduled to go through his FTO program as well with SMPD.
So we would just want it to be clarified that it's an arson investigator certification, and then looking at $600 annually versus.
which is the dollar. $50 a month, like Linda proposed. Yes, ma'am.
So it's basically, instead of applying to just intermediates and above with people,
Of those 6 people that this would impact, how many are outside of prevention?
Just one.
Just one.
Well, it would be 2. I don't know if Carl's eligible for it. Yeah.
We would do that voluntarily because the agreement doesn't apply to the assistant chief.
So 5.
We just need to make sure that it makes sense, because if there's more than that and you're opening it up to people across the department, I mean, you need to figure out.
Well, I don't think that chief would offer like anyone to go get their TCOL certification. I mean, if somebody wanted to do that, you could certainly do it maybe outside of work, but that's not something that I'm gonna go to chief and say, hey, can you send me to cop school? He's not gonna do that. Right, I mean.
But is it somebody, did you say earlier that Jade had appointed someone to work in a certain capacity?
Josh came from us from Copper's Code, and he had his TCOL cert already when we hired him.
But we wouldn't be applying this to them.
I think that's what they're asking for.
To just him, yes, but all the other people in our department that had it, at one point Kurt had it, did Paul have it?
Paul had it.
They've all let it lapse. So the only people are the people he's talking about, inclusive of Carl, which is his own separate and apart, and Josh Anchors, who's a recruit. He's only been here 2 years, maybe.
I think so.
Have you been here that long?
I think so.
But this does give us a little more capacity to utilize him in that way. But that's the only ones in the department that have it.
He is commissioned to receive results.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Somebody has to hold his commission. In this case, Jade holds Bobby's, Henderson's, Carl's, Josh's, and soon Fernandez.
So we're making it messy by having it apply to people that aren't in civil service.
No, he would still.
They
be
are
civil
civil
service.
service, they're just not assigned to the fire marshal's office, which is typically the way
Gotcha. Okay.
that it works, is it's an assignment that goes with that assignment to the marshal's office.
Okay. So that's why you're saying he's commissioned through that. Okay.
Yeah. And again, although he's not assigned to the marshal's office full time, he would be used in a capacity. Henderson has told him they want you to keep this up because we could use you in if we needed it for an arson investigator.
And he has a background in this, that's why he had it, is he was using it copper code, whatever he said came from. He was working in that function, in that capacity there. So if at some point after he's got a few years with us, if he wanted to move, we'd much rather maintain it than have to send him to get it back.
We'll better put that down and we'll talk about it and just kind of see how.
So, and just for future reference, in my opinion, the only way that we would get more than 6 members is if chief decides to send someone else to
Cop school.
or we hire another person that has it. It would apply to them as well, because like Chief said, you would much rather pay for somebody to maintain it than you would rather send them back to school.
To get.
Because it's not a 2-week cert, like that's a pretty long, extensive thing, no different than us going to the fire academy.
Okay.
And I think Josh also just got his intermediate, so he would still benefit from this as worded.
Let us look at that. Okay. Well, yeah, we're talking about this.
I think the other ones, I mean, let's see here. So under the investigations and disciplinary suspensions, I understand it, and I'm totally fine with the way that the 180 days and the 300 days, like that all makes sense to me. I just want a little bit more time and clarity to read over it to make sure that the language looks all good. Like we're all concerned with the, like, just for instance, section 1C says for alleged criminal violations. I mean, I don't know how the law reads and how you could use that. Could that be manipulated to where someone says, I mean, obviously it's a criminal violation, but what is alleged defined as?
So it's, the chief will have to, in his letter of complaint, specify the criminal violation that's being alleged.
Okay.
It can't just be, well, we think it might qualify as a crime. No, he's gonna have to say in his charging document that there's a crime being investigated and possibly going to be charged.
Okay. Okay, but other than that, I mean, I would like a little bit more time just to read over those as far as, sorry. Oh, yes, and then under that same section, section C, from what I read, like I looked up the civil service, it looks like it reads all pretty much all the same, with the 180 day periods being that he has 180 days from the time that he finds out about the allegation. What is the 180 day period shall be extended for a period not to exceed 30 days after final disposition. Where does that come into play? So that's the only thing that I found, that's the discrepancy that I found between the way civil service reads now compared to what is in here.
No, it should be in line. I think that's what that is, if the employee's been charged with a crime, then the chief, that clock can be extended until 30 days after final disposition of the court system and all that. So, indictment, if it goes to trial, whatever the case may be.
If also failing that, it's the date of occurrence. It's not the date the chief finds out. So if there's not a criminal, it's from the date of occurrence.
For non-criminal, yes, ma'am.
Right.
I'm talking about the criminal, because that's
Gotcha.
where it's under the criminal violation section,
Yeah.
yes, ma'am. The non-criminal, the 30 days is not in there, but under criminal it is.
Yeah, and that's just intended to, because there's no way to know how long some of these criminal cases will play out in the courts. So it just ties it to that, and then the chief has 30 days after it's finalized to get that action.
Okay. Just wanted clarity on that, because I know this is, these are gonna be the two big topics of discussion with our members, I can guarantee you, which.
And David, that typically gets a lot cleaner after the disposition, but once they're found guilty or they're indicted, they're gonna resign.
Right.
And so the reason the city cares, can't appeal resignation. So if you can just let the clock run and let that work its way out, it just makes it cleaner for everybody involved.
Okay.
Because once they're indicted for I think it says in there what they could be indicted for, but most of those are going to result in an indefinite suspension. So especially a conviction.
Okay.
Then they typically would come and just say, "Hey, I'm out." So okay, that's. But you work the administrative investigation concurrently, and then you just leave them in purgatory until that happens.
Okay.
So, yeah, any other questions y'all have on that, just let us know.
Okay.
And
For sure.
you can clarify anything.
And then city art 22. I think again, that was something that we just needed to kind of go over. I don't think we necessarily had any questions for you guys on that one. It was more for I made some notes here, but it's for us rather than you guys. And if I do, I'll reach out.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Correct.
And like I said, Nancy, do y'all have something that like we did have on the He doesn't have a copy of these, so we have any extra ones.
And we do in the, your electrical policies, does it define subordination and everything?
Thanks, Lou.
I can look when I get back. I'm pretty sure it does, but I'd have to.
But I mean, even if it doesn't, if y'all, yeah.
Just to get, he does have it, okay.
if y'all
Yeah, just to get it done.
You're comfortable with the definition, you can leave it, or if you're more comfortable with your policy,
Okay,
with that, and
definitely. Okay. No, I had that highlighted that we need to define that for sure. And I was gonna look under Lexipol as well. I was gonna get with Chief.
I mean, if not, we'll grab this one from PD so they're consistent. That would be the easiest.
I did have a question about the authority, but is this just for an arbitrator or does this count for appealing to the commission as well?
Just for the arbitrator.
Okay.
Yeah, it doesn't have it for the commission, this is really just for the arbitrator.
Okay. Other than that, am I missing anything else? If we had any other questions? Okay, I'm not going to support.
Not an insubordination point.
Anything on minor suspensions or anything on this, the shift?
No, I mean, as far as, did you guys come up with anything on, I mean, because this is, I'm kind of waiting on your proposal on that one. I mean,
We'll come up with a policy.
this is
as long as
definitely- yes, ma'am, this is definitely what we're trying to fix for sure. And I know, did you guys discuss it or?
we did, and I think if we were good with this.
Okay.
This methodology,
Okay,
if y'all are good with the methodology, we want to make sure it meets the interest, and then we'll work on the policy and have that ready for y'all to review also.
it does.
I mean, I see it being a brief policy statement with those attachments to it that define
Okay,
that.
And it'd be something that we'd have to make sure was codified for HR and payroll and all that, fire, that everybody has
okay,
something written with it.
And we do have policy books on both sides of the policy areas, so.
So we can sign, we can get that done and then we can sign that.
Sure.
And I can make sure
Okay.
that it's done too.
yes, ma'am.
So I think what we owe then is, so we did talk about case scenario and there's some stuff I need them to clean up to kind of get that together and that way then we can talk about that with y'all.
Okay.
We did talk about the fire marshal a little bit. And so and I'm gonna ask them to chime in if I'm misstating or not stating something correctly. So when we were looking at the fire marshal, obviously, since this is changing to an assistant chief position, unlike the current rules for it as a battalion chief, that has for us a different threshold in terms of the standards that we would like to see for that position. And so we are interested in reducing for the number of years that they would have to serve, like with as captain. And so we were interested in maybe reducing, I think right now it's 7 to 10 years. And so we were interested in saying, okay, we can reduce the number there. We would like to, just so you know, in terms of my philosophy and what I've worked on with HR for like other assistant directors, so similar assistant chiefs, it's just that we have said a minimum of 60 hours of college.
Okay.
And actively progressing towards a degree. So that is, so we want to show that there was that there. And especially with this, the one thing I always remember is that Les has always told us, and I know Michael Cosentino told us, that this is one of the most powerful positions, or one with the most authority. And so we want to make sure that those standards are set as such. So not comfortable with taking away all of the chief's discretion on that because it is an assistant chief. So would want to make sure that there was these minimum criteria, but then also look at performance, look at fit, look at decision-making, you know, those things that, because the people are important and that's an important component. I think any of us would tell you that our jobs would be easy if it wasn't for the people, and that's what a former police chief used to say. The supervisory can make things really, really difficult sometimes dealing with the people aspect. So those are some considerations that we wanted to throw out there for discussion. And did I miss anything as far as or misstate anything that we talked about? So those are the things that we just want to talk about with y'all so that we can start getting some language together. If there's some version of that we want to be able to have for discussion, but that's where we are. That's where our interest is just making sure that we're keeping this as a position that is looked at with robust criteria, with it going to be an assistant chief versus a battalion chief.
Okay. No, that makes sense, and I'm okay. Like Henderson and I told you, Henderson and I spoke the other day when I think you were off the other Thursday or Friday, and we came up, I mean, we're on the same page. I never wanted it. It was never our intention to make it to where you absolutely need to be an officer, captain, to be able to get promoted into that position. I think it was maybe misunderstood that it would be something different than that, but that's not the case. I agree with you there. I do agree with the college hours versus working towards a degree, which obviously need to look through that and see, but I'm more than willing to meet you guys halfway when it comes to that, because I do understand it's a very high level position for sure. So, if we could, I mean, I don't know, do you have proposed language other than what we already have written, Linda, or chief, or do you guys have
Can
anything?
we refine it and get you something to look
Sure.
at?
Okay.
Because I think we wanted to make sure just philosophically that we could talk to y'all about it and
Sure.
see if y'all were, or yes, but no, or, or something like that. So it's, could we talk about this or that, just so that we can kind of make sure that whatever we go and draft is getting us towards the entrance versus us spinning our wheels with something and then y'all be like, nah, so we just wanted to talk about the things that were important to us to see if y'all have something that's important for y'all to see before we go and start drafting.
So our only concern in this literally is the fact that we want to have the chief, whoever that may be, look within our department first before they go outside of here. Because he would never do this, right? We all know that he would do the right thing just because that's the type of person that he is. But 10 years down the road, that may not be the case. And you may have some chief that says, no, I got a buddy over here that, I can hire and he's going to do a better job than anybody here. And that's what we're trying to avoid. It's our department. We want to make sure that the chief has to look within our department first before he goes outside the hire. And that's literally the only speculation we want to put on it.
I think that's a very well articulated interest, which I think we should all consider. So
Yeah.
just how do we develop some wording that says the chief will look there first,
Right.
but also have that wording where if there's somebody that doesn't,
Correct.
Because if there's somebody that's an outlier, they don't fit, it's that guy, y'all don't want to promote it either. Right?
100%.
Right.
Yes,
So
sir.
it's how we get that wording in there, provides that level of discretion for the chief, but also confirms he's looking inside first.
Correct.
We can work on that.
Mhm.
Just-
I think so, definitely.
So, but David, do y'all know, just so you don't, maybe save us going back and forth one more time. So we talked about like 5 years as a captain. That's what Henderson had currently
Mhm.
when we appointed him. If y'all have some metrics in mind, it'd be good to have those so that when we write this, we write those with some of that in mind. If y'all have had a chance to discuss it, if not,
We have not.
okay, that's, I just didn't want to, I was gonna try to say one back and forth. So
Okay.
if
I mean, we can certainly look, review that and try to come up with something the way it looks.
So maybe if we're at, so right now if it's 7 to 10, so 7's our minimum number for all intents and purposes with that, right? So if we were to draft it at 5 and then let y'all look at it and then we can go from there, but
Sure.
where you're all agreeing for us starting at 5 and then we'll talk about
Okay.
if there's anything that needs to change from there.
As absent a battalion chief rank being added into prevention, you're either looking at an ops, Aaron,
Mhm.
coming over, or a captain jumping 2 ranks.
Right.
So that's why I was thinking he's gonna easily have it because he had the time as a captain plus the time as a BC. If you're grabbing a captain, they need even more time because they've done all that in
Right.
one rank. Jumping, there's not a BC currently jumping to an assistant chief. So in order to keep it at the assistant chief, which I think we all agree is where it belongs, we're gonna have to build some kind of a metric that gives equal time and credit for what he would have were he coming into that position directly from a BC.
Okay.
And is there a time and service in the prevention division or something? Is it worded that way?
Well, they're going to draft the language. I think the chief was just talking about as a captain in general. That way, like you said, you could pull somebody out of ops.
Yeah.
That would count towards your time if you were a captain in ops, not just a fire prevention. Right?
So we just have it.
Yeah, and there's not, to Bobby's question, there's not currently, because right now, were it to come open, were Henderson to leave, you're looking at probably the only options would be reassigning Carl and promoting to fill Carl's position or drafting an ops BC or how. I mean, you're gonna have to drag one of them over there to head that division. And then they're gonna have to
The way it's
lean,
rated today.
yeah, they're gonna have to lean on you guys for the technical expertise. Eric loved it in Garland. It's exactly what they did. They put Eric over there from an admin position just for supervisory coordination, personnel skill. And then he leaned on Chad and Trowbridge and those other guys, to do the technical piece until he could come up to speed on it. So that's kind of what that model would look like. I'd rather not, but we gotta have people back there that are chasing these requirements. And that's what we're trying to figure out is how do we write this in a way that gives you or Clint or Larry some latitude to be pursuing them and still meet this.
Right.
I think that's the main thing, is
Yes, ma'am.
just trying to make sure that we've got that tied down for meeting the mutual interests. So I think now that we've kind of had some time to talk about it, and we know where y'all are, and y'all know kind of where we are, then we can put something together for y'all to look at.
Okay.
And have that also for next time.
Sure. And again, Linda, if you need anything, we can help with anything like that, let us know.
I think that's really it, and then we'll get the pay stuff, get that refined. And get those scenarios, so we can go through that, and then, anything else?
Anything in the synergy we go over today?
Yeah, anything on assessment centers?
No, Chris needs to get the date. It's not Todd that does the fire, it's a guy that works for him. It's recently retired and took some time off, so.
Okay.
Retired assistant, fire inspector in the city, but.
Okay.
Okay,
And I know this is more another thing we discussed as far as like a policy thing rather than in the contract. Where do we stand on the, like guys getting hurt on duty, converting their time back and forth? Cause like we've used the example, it hadn't happened in a while, but if somebody gets hurt and, gets hurt on duty and they get put on 8 to 5, light duty, whatever. We've had it to where if they have a doctor's appointment on Wednesday, take them off of light duty, they burn the 24 hours and then they come back, get put back on light duty. Or are we anywhere?
So
Because
I don't-
consistency is what we're looking for.
we did talk about that last time and did agreement that if it was a full shift or more, I think one of my takeaways in working through this other issue is realizing when somebody moves back and forth, all the things that need to get changed. So not only do leave balances need to change, but the way that holiday time is awarded, because you observe the holiday if you're on 8s, if you're on shift, you earn the holiday. So there's a whole lot of things that need to be changed for somebody if it's just gonna be 14 days. So, I'd like to have a little bit more discussion around that as we work on this with the
And
finance team and figure out what really makes sense.
Sure, and I totally understand that. I'm not asking for that. If it's a short-term thing, then they just need to be let, at the 12-hour rate, and I'm fine with that. But if it's a long-term, like we've had guys that go out with a surgery or whatever, and they're on light duty for a couple of months,
I just don't know that 2 weeks is the right time, so I think.
No, correct. I understand that
that.
completely. Yes, ma'am. I understand that. That's not what I'm asking for. I'm
Mhm.
just more of a consistency to say, hey, if you get hurt on duty, this is what it's going to look like.
That's gonna be as part of this. Okay.
It'd probably be a different one, but that same way. I mean, as far as we know, we've been respecting that time off since the last time we met. So if you know of anything where it hasn't worked out.
I don't know of any, like we haven't had a whole, to my knowledge, I don't think it's
Long was
normal part of it. Hulu was part of it, but I was saying recently, I don't think.
It's been a long time.
Yeah, but I know for sure it did happen, and we're just trying to prevent it in the future.
While they're taking notes on that one thing, I brought up to them, and I didn't realize it wasn't in the agreed thing you all discussed. So I'm gonna ask y'all, is try to include or consider including the language that PD has for hiring retirees back with part-time? I don't have anything.
No,
on mine.
Linda, I told her, Linda asked me about that, I told her we're fine with that, yes.
Okay, I don't have anything right now, but this is a 3 possible 4-year agreement.
Correct.
And in that time, Kurt or John or somebody could retire, and I can certainly see we're having at least that ability.
Okay. My actual question, because Henderson actually, it's one of the things Henderson and I talked about, is that defined, does it have to be a retiree from San Marcos, or could it be somebody from the, just outside agency somewhere that he could? That's what I don't know.
It's not, the way it's defined in police is it's part-time, less than 1,000 hours a year, which works around MRS's rules, to come back. So, I mean, that's the extent it is. I think PD has hired one gentleman who was not one of our retirees. But that was a pretty short-lived arrangement, but if you had somebody special you wanted to bring in for a little bit, it would allow that.
So that's what I just want to make sure, because I think Henderson, and I think Greg Carlton has a job right now, but he was using him as the example. Like if we needed to hire him for an arson investigation, they could hire him part-time and have that ability. So we are okay with that and open to that for sure.
Okay. We'll cross the language on it.
Use it, but nice to have it if needed, right?
Correct. Correct.
But for retired, part-time for retirees.
Mhm.
And then the assessment center, we need to work on that. And then we need to talk to the chief a little bit about the promotional performance review process before we present that to y'all.
Okay.
So that other thing that we talked about, that we did letters of reprimand for police. And so what we did with them was that letters of reprimand and suspensions already had look back windows. And so we need to talk to the chief a little bit about.
Yeah, we haven't talked much about it. Okay, just conceptually, we built a scoring matrix that allows you to, you come into so you get a written test score, assessment center score, and then you have a score for this third component, which is a performance review, right? And it's intended to let you get, points, whether they be positive or negative, from how you perform,
Okay.
during your junior year. And so we built a matrix that you come into the process with 50 points, just sort of gimme, that's your base. And you can add to that through things like commendations and such, or you can have deductions from that through things like letters of reprimand, suspensions, all awards, things on the positive side as well. And so we are open to it, and she applies it, we could build a similar process for you guys. So conceptually, that's what we did.
And we did come to agreement with them on that. Also, it'll be part of what we present to council.
Okay.
Tomorrow.
And Chief Standards asked for it, he had it, and that one thought it was a good way to evaluate past performance, being probably one of the strongest predictors of future performance, so that's why they built it over there.
And it was, and it's got a look back window, so it's not like definite. It's, I think it was for corporal, it was 2, sergeant it was 3, and then for commander it was 5. Obviously, we didn't make them 3 also, right? But that was what we did, and, just to try to make sure that there's some accountability and that there are those kind of standards, and we don't promote somebody who's recently had something happen that should have been considered.
Okay.
So we'll talk to the chief about that, and before we present that, just to make sure he doesn't, that he's on board with us, with that.
Do you know of any departments currently that use a system like that? I mean, I'm not opposed to it,
This is on the.
Performance review.
Yeah, I think there's some of those, the assessment center I sent y'all all the PD's definition of insubordination.
Okay.
It'd be nice if we don't have any qualms, we'll just incorporate that.
And that's what's in
It's on there now.
So y'all may have the language, but I emailed it to y'all, that way they'd be consistent, it's easy enough to add it to ours. I'm not opposed to that. On the assessment centers, I've expressed to them, one of the things that we're dealing with, and I know Aaron gets probably more than y'all do, invites to go and sit as an assessor. I think we've sent you recently to do one too. Is more and more people either not wanting to do it or not having the capacity. Hey, we'd love to, but we're already short-handed. We got people deployed with TIFMAS where we can't do it. This system that they were describing with the individual, he brings assessors, like he has people that he compensates as part of the price for the city to administer. And if we are not out knocking on doors the night before, because I know we run into that with other cities, very last minute, and we're trying to scramble to find somebody. So I haven't looked at all this. I'll look at it and get with them, but I don't know that much about it.
And you can tell them what you want the minimum qualifications to be for these assessors. Certain rank, certain department size, that kind of thing. So that, you've got some level of comfort that his assessors know, at least to conceptually know the job. Okay.
So we enable it through Meet and Confer, and then the teams work together to do the assessment guide for that. And that's where all of those decisions are made. It forms like a policy, and that guides the process.
Okay.
We did talk about whether we want to do it for certain ranks or whatever, so we'll get back. So next time we'll have the retirees part-time language. We'll look at the assessment centers. Hopefully we'll have the pay, and then we'll talk about fire marshal. Those are on our review for next time. Anything else for this? I know we've got to do the hiring stuff, which is part of the lateral entry and all that, but anything else? Anything else, Linda?
I do have one question. It is on the article with the certifications. I know we talked before when we were talking about it being calls, so if arson investigator, if we go with that, then arson investigator is what would be added to this matrix, the point
Are
matrix.
you saying under section 6 where it says?
No, it's about the points for.
Oh, yes, ma'am, I'm sorry. Sure, yes, ma'am.
I think we have. Adding the arson theater in there. Bobby, does it require its own standalone fourth, or is it fire investigator and TCO?
Fire investigator and T code melded together makes arson.
So is fire investigator already on there, Linda? They're probably already on there, and there's really no gravy in combining them and winding up with a situation where you get.
Okay, so there is TCFP /arson investigator certification,
That's
2
it.
points, so it's there already.
It's already there, perfect. And then is T-Cole, is it on that list currently?
Not currently, no.
No, but if it's required for this, does that get it?
It would, well, but you can have, so that would be, like, I could have fire investigator. I couldn't have arson, but Bobby can have arson because he already has his T-Cole.
With the fire
So
investigator.
should fire investigator be one number and arson investigator be another, because that's
Yes.
just PICO?
I think that would be.
If separated the two, that would be good.
What you basically do, Aaron, is package them, right? You package the fire investigator and evidence of T-Cole, make application then for arson investigator certification. And then make another $85.
Yes. Yeah.
State.
Very advanced level. Are there various levels of that, Bobby? Do you know?
So it goes right along with fire investigators. You get-
There's more of them?
Yeah.
We should.
Okay.
try to be agree.
Okay.
Agree not to.
Yep. So then we just need a points value for that arson.
I would say 2, just like the fire
Yeah.
investigator, yes, ma'am.
And then the only other thing that we said we needed to talk about was longevity, but we're running that with pay. So it's all gonna roll up into there, okay, so we'll do that when we do the pay. Because that was one of the things y'all were, you need to add in.
You want to say for students, talk about performance? Sure.
And then my next stop's across the hall is.
We didn't even.
The next stop's with her, so it'll all work together, because I need to, we'll talk on this and then you need to say, we'll talk on another thing.
One more thing.
And then we've got the compensation.
I mean, there needs to go before that.
Yeah. So we meet again, next meeting is scheduled for Monday, May 15th, 9 o'clock. Here in this room.
I'll go be at that one. Yeah, that one.
So this will be the, and we'll make sure this is forwarded to you too.
It is, I have a meeting with Amanda that we've been trying to have for quite a while. It's at that exact time I can move that. If you want me to be here.
It might be good if we are going to talk about the fire marshal stuff, that's really the biggest thing, I think.
Okay, I'll see if we can reschedule that later that day.
Just because he's not here,
Yeah.
should be good to have.
Okay.
Okay, so next time we'll talk about the retirees part-time assessment centers, pay, fire marshal, look at the hiring and then longevity as part of it. So I think that'll, and then y'all can let us know if y'all have any, if y'all have any thoughts about any of the stuff that y'all have, that y'all were gonna take some time with the arbitration language and.
For sure. Those are the 2 that are, that we would, that are gonna be the most questions, let's say.
Yeah. And if there's any questions about any of that either, I mean, like also that we're gonna be doing a presentation tomorrow to the council, so. If there's, an interest in looking at that, or if you're later on when y'all are discussing it with your membership, it'll be taped.
Okay.
I will get to see that, I think that explained a little bit.
Tune in and watch it live.
Yeah. All right.
Just a vote or just the presentation?
Presentation,
Both
vote
of
was
them.
at the 16th meeting.
Yeah. First reading.
And so that was kind of something different this time. It was like the council asked for a presentation before them actually agreeing.
Mhm.
So we'll need to talk about that if we want to do something, just because of course that puts it out there before
Mhm.
your membership's voting and everything else is
Right.
taken with the
Yes.
police. that we have to
Jesse,
use. So,
let's put the slides out there at the time, so.
because normally that would come out till the agreement comes out, so we'll need to talk about that with y'all in terms of working through that.
Yeah, we have our next association meeting next Tuesday, so hopefully I'm not hopefully, I will present all of these things that we have
Okay.
so far to our membership on that day, so.
Okay, that sounds
Well,
good.
maybe could you talk to them about just conceptually, us doing, do you want to do a presentation?
Okay.
It's essentially, it'd be sort of a violation of the ground rules unless y'all agree to, it's okay to do a presentation, by then y'all will hopefully agree on everything, you just have to vote it.
Right,
So, okay.
and you
We
would
would
want to
have
do
to be
that,
on everything.
you would want to do the presentation in July or in August, when would you
It's
want to?
either meeting probably before the vote.
Okay,
But with the amount of time we've got with them, they could probably get it ratified first, because we were gonna get you the agreement by the end of
Yeah.
June, and
Yes,
then.
and we have the month of July to get it,
Get it
Let me know
ratified.
the issue. If
That
y'all
may
like-
not even be an issue.
that's what our goal is,
Y'all typically done that in 3 or 4 days.
normally we have,
One
yeah.
cycle of the shifts, right?
Mhm.
So y'all might actually have it all ratified. But just so y'all know, that we would be doing that with council before they actually vote on the approval of it. So. All right, well then we'll go ahead and end the meeting at 11:03.
It's good.
Thank y'all so much.
Yes.